With KOF 99, a new mechanic was introduced to the King of Fighters series. Teams were no longer composed of 3 but of 4 characters, while the matches themselves were still 3 versus 3. The 4th member of each team could be called during the match to execute a quick attack before they leave. This 4th member was called a striker. It was an interesting concept that really didn't reach its full potential until the sequel, KOF 2000. 2 reasons were behind this success: the active striker system that made these characters' interventions in battle a lot smoother, allowing for more combo possibilities, and the second reason, the alternative strikers that every fighter had, which is the main subject of this video. During the select order screen, the player has the option to choose a different character as their striker. This different character can be an alternative version of themselves or a totally different figure from another SNK game. Some fighters even have a third striker known as Hidden or Maniac Striker, which you can only unlock via a code in the arcade version, but for the sake of convenience, I'm playing the PS2 version that has all the Maniac Strikers available without any code. I was initially planning to make a top 10 list of best strikers in KOF 2000, but realized that there are too many amazing and cool ones that I want to talk about, and the top 10 format wasn't going to allow for that. So I was like, screw it, I'm gonna do it the long way and talk about every single one of these strikers, explaining a bit of lore behind them, who they are, what games they came from, and how their attacks work. So buckle up, it's going to be a long one. But before that, as always, if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon. Also, I'd appreciate it if you share this video with your friends, that would really help the channel growing. Starting with KOF's main character, Kyo Kusanagi, who is present in 2000 as a single entry. As a striker, Kyo uses his level 2 super, Arashinagi, where he engulfs himself in fire. Obviously, the super doesn't do the usual amount of damage now that it's used as a striker attack. Kyo's alternate striker is a character named Sho Kirishima. If you think that he looks a lot like Kyo, it's simply because Sho is an early prototype of our fiery protagonist. From his outfit, he seems to be part of a biker gang and he already has fire-based attacks. He dives headfirst at the opponent in a similar way to Ralph's diver bomber punch, then follows the attack with a fiery uppercut. And yes, it is the finishing move that Kusanagi's super is based on. Also, both characters are voiced by the same actor. By the way, this is not Sho's first appearance. He was already a striker in KOF 99 Evolution. Kyo is one of the characters who have a maniac striker. In his case, it's none other than his father Saishu. His attack is nothing special though, he just throws a fast fireball that causes a knockdown. Moving on to Kyo's all-time rival Iori, also presented as a single entry. As a striker, he throws a fireball that launches the opponent slightly in the air. You would think it will freeze the opponent like his old super, but it actually doesn't. His alternate striker brings Mature and Vice from the dead. Only one of them will attack at a time, and it's completely random who is it gonna be. It doesn't really matter though, since they use exactly the same attack. With their snake arm, they grab and throw the opponent in the air, leaving them exposed to the player. I love how, unlike other strikers, they fade away instead of normally leaving the stage, because, in case you forgot, they were dead at the time. Their presence in 2000 is not canon, but it's still a cool detail. Lastly, Iori also has a maniac striker in the form of a peculiar version of himself called another Iori. The clothes he's wearing are based on some official odd artworks. Supposedly, Iori usually wears this black trench coat during his music concerts, and it's also the costume that his outfit in 15 is heavily based on. Iori attacks first with his kick that looks like a straightforward version of his cross-up, then follows it with a fire-infused punch. I should probably mention that this striker is easily one of the strongest in the game. It's super fast, reaches full screen, and can be used offensively and defensively. Let's leave the single entries for now and begin analyzing the official team's characters. First, with the NES Saga's main hero, K-Dash. There is nothing special in the way he attacks as a striker, he just uses his narrow spike technique. That being said, it's his alternate version that interests us here, named another K-dash. Basically, it's K-dash but with darker hair, and just like Sho Kirishima, this is a prototype of K-dash. This is further proved by his mean of attack. He uses a rougher version of his minute spike. Instead of landing on his feet, he slides a bit on his back, as if he is still training and the move is not refined yet. There is a theory saying that this version of K-dash is the one he would have become if he wasn't infused with Kyo's DNA, but personally I don't agree with it. I don't think that the cloning process has anything to do with it. I mean, why would K-dash's hair turn white after being infused with Kyo's DNA? Kyo doesn't have white hair. Maxima grabs and holds the opponent by their neck, leaving enough time for the player to attack them. That's him acting as a striker. However, he leaves his place for another figure in the alternate version. This new character is a robot called Rocky, a character from an old beat-em-up game that attacks by a cannon blast coming out from its open chest. Fun fact, in Robo Army, the aforementioned beat-em-up game, Rocky has a partner called Maxima as well. It's not the same Maxima from KOF, but I just love these subtle hints and winks. When you notice it, you'll realize that of course Rocky is the perfect striker for Maxima. They even have similar color pattern. Newcomer to KOF 2000, Ramon uses a multi-hit move similar to his super. It does a decent amount of damage and the player can take advantage of the stun stage of the opponent to launch his own attacks. Much like Maxima, he leaves his place for another character in his alternate striker version. The character in question is Duke Edwards, the protagonist of the beat-em-up game Burning Fight. Duke just walks slowly toward the opponent and once he reaches them, attacks with a mighty uppercut that sends the victim flying in the air. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but if timed correctly, the player can follow it with a deadlier move of their own. And what do you know? Ramon has not one but two maniac characters. Actually, that's not true. They still count as one. The characters in question are Neo and Geo. Aside from the reference to SNK's console, Neo McDonald and Geo Kentucky, yes, these are their full names, are from a quiz game called Quiz Dai Susasen. I never played that game, but I noticed that it's subtitled The Last Countdown. That's exactly what their attack looks like. A countdown that once finished results into an explosion that sends them out of the stage and hits the opponent if they are too close. Vanessa's striker attack resembles that of Ramon's, except that she doesn't waste time and goes directly for the punches. It also reaches the end of the screen and deals a decent amount of damage. For some reason, her alternate version is none other than Metal Slug's best waifu, Fio. You'd think it would be more suitable if she was a striker for one of the Ikari warriors, but I guess at that time, the Ikaris weren't included yet in the Metal Slug series, so she was assigned to Vanessa instead. Fio attacks by letting herself fall flat on the opponent, and from the look of it, it seems more painful for her than for anybody else. She then salutes the player and takes off. However, if her fall misses the target, she gets up and attacks by pushing them with her hands, a clear reference to her melee attack in Metal Slug. Moving on to Benimaru's team and with their captain in person, his striker attack acts a lot like Maxima's. He neutralizes the opponent with his Electrigger and leaves them exposed for a few moments for the player, but the attack itself doesn't deal any damage. Just like Kyo and K-Dash, Benimaru's alternate striker is a prototype of himself. Another Benimaru, that's his name, is Benimaru minus the JoJo's references. His hair is no longer upwards, his new costume doesn't look like Polnareff's, and he uses a short-range lightning attack. This version of Benimaru makes you realize how much he looks like Andy. As you would expect from Shingo, his striker attack is very goofy. He runs toward the opponent and jumps on their legs, trying to hold them still for a few moments for the player to attack. His other striker is pretty interesting. At first, Kyoko may give you the impression that Kyo received the fatal cutie treatment that Cherry Bogard had in SNK Heroines, but in actuality, this is a totally different person. Kyoko is a cosplayer and a huge fan of Kyo. She attacks by mimicking some of his moves, the ones that don't include the fire element. She is created as an homage to Kyo's real-life female cosplayers. The third member of Benimaru's team, Lin uses one of his special moves as a striker attack. Although it's short range, it does send the victim high in the air, making them vulnerable for any anti-air move. Since he is an assassin, it's fitting that his striker is the ninja Eiji Kisaragi from Art of Fighting 2 and KOF 95. He disappears immediately after he's summoned and makes you wonder what's going on or if his attack had failed. Then without warning, he appears next to the opponent and attacks them with his Kasumi Giri. Also, the closer the player is to the opponent, the faster Eiji will appear. Last but not least, Seth executes a dive kick when he's called. If the attack doesn't hit the opponent, he still walks toward them and finishes the attack anyway with an uppercut. His alternate striker is Diamond, the regular member of Team Japan who was absent for the majority of Nest Saga. I guess it makes sense for him to be in the same team as Benimaru and Shingo, even if his presence in 2000 is not canon. He attacks by executing his command grab after running very slowly into his enemy's direction. The command grab doesn't cause any damage. The time given to the player to follow with an attack is very short, and Diamond doesn't go all the way to the edge of the screen. This is one of my least favorite strikers, but at least we get to see Diamond with his full judo gi on. The Ikari warriors have a curious thing for the Orochi team, it appears, since all their alternate strikers are members of the evil clan. But let's not get ahead of ourselves and start from the beginning. Leona as a striker runs and places a bomb on her adversary, then she sets it off once she gets behind them. The only flaw in her attack is that she doesn't reach full screen. Things become more interesting when we discover that her alternate version is the leader of the Orochi clan, Genitz. There are a lot of history between the two, and him being a striker for Leona is probably a nod to that. He attacks by his famous Kokodeska, creating a tornado right after he fades away. The tornado launches the opponent in the air and gives the player opportunity to follow it with whatever they like. Ralph's striker attack is pretty strong. He enters the stage with his diver bomber punch and then he immediately goes for a Galactica Phantom. The diver does not reach the edge of the screen, but the Galactica Phantom will most likely hit the opponent. Unfortunately, I don't think it's possible to combo from Ralph's attack, or maybe I just suck. His alternate striker is Yashiro in regular form. He enters the stage with his Sledgehammer special move. After that, he executes a toned-down version of his Million Bash Stream Super, then he wishes you goodbye. Clark likes to play catch with the player. He enters the stage with a jump CD, grabs his victim and tosses them at you. It looks pretty funny, but it requires a delicate spacing for it to succeed. His alternate version is unsurprisingly Shermie, another grappler. She is very suitable to be Clark's striker, as she did mention in 97's interview that she would love to be in the same team with him and Diamond. She has a soft spot for other grapplers, I guess. With an original custom, she attacks with her command throw, but in this version, she holds the opponent on the ground a bit longer for the player. Then she fades away while laughing at her victim. The last member of Team Ikari, Whip frantically wiggles her whip in her striker attack, but if she is too close to the opponent, she sends them high in the air for the player to attack. And of course, her alternate version is the remaining member of the Orochi team, Chris. He'll attack either with a low or an overhead move, depending on his position to the opponent. As for why he is a striker for Whip, there isn't a real reason, except that it would have been weird if his friends showed up for the other Ikaris and not him. There is that time when I shot him in the face with Whip, but I highly doubt that was canon. Moving on with the Fatal Fury team, Cherry uses his super in his striker form. When the player is far from the enemy, he executes a power geyser. If they are too close, Cherry then goes for a high angle geyser. Unfortunately, none of his attacks reaches full screen, and it doesn't seem possible to combo from them either. His alternate striker is his all-time nemesis / probably his secret father, Geese Howard. He does his Jaiken special move, but stops at mid-screen. If it doesn't hit the opponent, Geese taunts them. If touched, he parries and throws the enemy to the other side of the stage. I think Andy is a better striker than his brother. He attacks with his Zanieken, which goes all the way to the edge of the screen and makes the adversary fly pretty high, vulnerable to all kinds of anti-air moves. His alternate striker is Billy Khan. It would have made more sense if he was Terry's striker, but since the Hungry Wolf already had Geese, I guess it makes sense. He does his forward A followed with a DP, not the flashiest attack, but at least it allows to juggle with the opponent for a bit. As for Joe, in his striker form, he executes his machine punch attack finished with a DP. It's a solid defensive striker, but can also used in the middle of a combo. Duck King makes an early appearance in KOF as Joe's other striker. He attacks with his breakdance special move. Although it requires a precise spacing to land, the opponent remains in a stun stage while Duck attacks them, an easy target for the player's most devastating moves. Finally, the last member of Team Fatal Fury, Blue Mary uses a combination of her slicer and spider moves to hit and throw the opponent in the air, perfect for anti-air techniques from the player. Since all the alternate strikers of the Fatal Fury team are characters from Fatal Fury, it's just logical that Mary's alternate striker is Yamazaki, especially that he was her former teammate in 97. His attack resembles a lot that of Maxima's. Yamazaki grabs and holds the adversary, shakes them violently while laughing like a maniac, giving a perfect opportunity for the player to attack. Before continuing with the remaining teams, how about some piece of KOF 2000 trivia? Did you know that poster boy Terry Bogard was almost going to be absent in this game as he was supposed to die at the end of 99? Remember the fallen nest base during their team ending? Terry got stuck under the rubble and it seems he wasn't supposed to survive that. Just imagine how things could have been different in subsequent games. I wonder who would have been in Smash Bros. Ultimate in his place. I have no idea, but I'm still pretty sure it wouldn't have been mine. Back to our main topic, since KOF 98, Ryo completely lost his air fireballs, or so I thought until I saw his striker attack in 2000. Not only he can still use them, the air fireballs can cause a knockdown too. His other striker is Awakened Kaede, the main protagonist of the Last Blade series. His mean of attack is his lightning based super. Seeing Kaede as Ryo's alternate striker led many to believe that the two may be related. Just like how Zentetsu is Eiji's ancestor, Kaede may be the great-great-grandfather of Ryo. I can't deny the possibility of the two being related, but I think in this case, Kaede is Ryo's striker more because of how the two are associated with dragons. Ryo is known as the Invincible Dragon, and Kaede has a literal dragon spirit living within him. Also, they're both blondes. Ryo is one of the lucky characters who have a maniac striker. His is the mysterious floating figure known as G-Mantle. Before Terry Bogard became the official mascot of SNK, G-Mantle used to fill this role. He made many cameos in several SNK games before he slowly faded into forgetfulness. This is all G-Mantle's fault though, as he was the one who brought Terry into fame. I'm talking in literal sense. He was the taxi driver who drove Terry to the first Fatal Fury game. G-Mantle attacks by throwing roses at his enemies. I assure you, it's more painful than it sounds. Ryo's best friend Robert uses his super during his striker attack. Nothing original here. However, his alternate version is probably the funniest in the game. Dressed in his karate gi, he uses an unrefined looking DP to attack. Basically, he's mimicking Dan Hibiki from Street Fighter, who himself was created as a parody of Robert and Ryo. His gi's alternate color is pink, and even his taunt is the same as Dan's. This joke has made a full circle here. The new member of the Art of Fighting team, King, has a pretty strong attack as a striker. She combines her command normal with her super to damage and launch the opponent in the air. Her alternate striker brings back some painful memories to me personally. I don't see why King Lion, the main villain of Savage Rain and Kizuna Encounter, is King Striker, except for the fact that the word King is in their both names. He attacks with a strong punch that unfortunately doesn't reach full screen, but if the player is too close to the opponent, King Lion uses his Dynamite special move instead. The more I see this guy, the angrier I get, so let's just move on. Last but not least, Takuma decides to wear his Tengu mask before throwing his Haoshokoken during his striker intervention. Playing as Ryo or Robert and throwing the same super as Takuma at the same time make the duo look like Goku and Gohan vs Cell. The alternate striker is none other than Gai Tendo from Buriki 1. Again, that would make more sense if Gai was a Ryo striker since they are both in the same game. But Ryo already has two alternate strikers, so he was assigned to Takuma instead. Gai attacks 3 times. The third is when he enters the stage. He takes off his robe and does what looks like Terry's crack shoot, and then he uses a final powerful kick. In her regular form, Athena is one of the most useful characters. Her striker ability is purely defensive. She heals some of your health bar. It's not much, but it's still pretty useful. She can also knock down the enemy if they are too close to her. Her other striker is, without a surprise, her ancestor, Princess Athena. With her full armor on, she uses a fire-based attack. It's fast, allows to combo from it, but unfortunately, its range is very short. That being said, Kensu is a lot worse as a striker. Unless the player is too close to the opponent, causing them to be hit by Kensu's Ryusogeki, he doesn't do anything. He just eats his Nekkoman and takes off. Maybe it has some kind of buff that I'm not seeing. If it's the case, please do tell in the comments. His other form is a lot better thankfully. Kensu is wearing his costume from the Psycho Soldier game, which is the same that his outfit in KOF 13 is based on. He uses a 2-hit move that deals a decent amount of damage and allows the player to follow it with their own attack. Their Master Chen rolls into the stage slowly and executes his DP. If the opponent is too far, he'll stop for a bit to look for them, then does his DP. The problem with his attack is that it won't hit the target if they were too close to the player. Chen will just roll past them. His other striker is a panda bear named Bai Tang, who was befriended by Bao sometime before the tournament started, even though Chen was against this friendship as he hates panda bears. Bai Tang attacks by rolling and hitting the adversary on the way. At least its attack reaches full screen. Apparently, the existence of Bai Tang in KOF 2000 is canon, as he is mentioned again in the ending of KOF 11. The youngest member of Team Psycho Soldiers attacks by running and headbutting the opponent before launching his Super Psycho Ball. Bao's other striker is Kaoru, the fragile young girl seen at the ending of KOF 97. She is one of Athena's biggest fans, who, after she recovered from her illness, became a faithful supporter of the whole team. Kaoru attacks by charging at her enemy and hitting them with her shoulder. Then she encourages her teammates before leaving the stage. Next team is the happy band of Kim and his trainees. As a striker, Kim executes a simpler version of his air super Huokyaku, but it's hardly a useful move unless the target is close to the player. Then Kim will give an opportunity to them by raising the opponent high enough in the air. The other striker of Kim is a character from Kizuna Encounter named Suil. You've probably seen him before as a cameo in some KOF stages, and the first thing you'd notice about Suil is the striking resemblance he shares with Kim. This is hardly the only thing in common between the two men, as they are also Koreans, practice Taekwondo, and hate crime. The only thing that distinguishes Suil is his use of the bow staff, which he utilizes during his striker attack. It comes with no surprise that one of the biggest fighters in KOF, Chang, uses his weight as a weapon to squash the enemy underneath it. However, he gives place to another figure in his alternate version, Kim's other son, Donwan. The loose genius uses his lightning-based special move to kick the adversary in the air, but his attack won't work unless the opponent is right next to you, making Don Juan more fitting as a defensive striker against aggressive foes. If his attack doesn't land, he just does a silly dance before he takes off. I wonder how Kim is gonna react after seeing that. And surprise surprise, Chang has a maniac striker, and his name is Smart Chang. In this version, he is still a prisoner who carries his giant iron ball, but is a lot more fit and still has his hair on his head. Smart Chang attacks by swinging his iron ball while advancing towards the opponent, making him an ideal striker to keep pressure on the enemy. Moving on to Chang's best friend, Choi. His striker attack works a lot like Don Juan's. If the adversary is too close, he'll do his Tatsumaki Shippuden. Otherwise, we'll have to do with a silly dance from him. As expected, Choi's alternate striker is Kim's second son, Jae-hoon. He attacks with his fire-based kick, but the hard knockdown that this move causes makes it impossible for the player to combo from it. And much like Chang, Choi also has a maniac striker named Cool Choi. In this version, he is taller, still has his hair, and after the attack, he readjusts his sunglasses in a cool way, just like that pirate from One Piece. Smart Chang and Cool Choi are 100% original characters of KOF 2000. I'd pay anything to see them in a spin-off beat-em-up game that takes place in an alternative timeline where they are the good guys and have to fight against the cruel Emperor Kim and his tyrannical rule. Not a bad pitch for a beat-em-up game. Athena's biggest fan, Jun, attacks with his Kusajin, but he sends the opponent way too high that I don't think it's possible for the player to catch them during their fall. If the enemy is too far, he'll do his overhead attack instead. The alternate striker of Jun is a figure called Baidal. Like Kyo, K-Dash and Benimaru, he is a prototype of Jun. Aside of the stance, everything else is different with him. Baidal attacks with a double tornado projectiles that he creates with his kicks. Joe would have had another serious rival. I still prefer Jun's design, but I think Baidal's is pretty good too. We finally reached the last team in the roster under the leadership of Mai Shiranui. Her attack looks a lot like Andy's Shoryudan in this game, but since she finishes the move with a hard knockdown, it's impossible for the player to combo after her attack. Mai also doesn't go all the way to the edge of the screen. If the opponent is too far, she'll stop midway and just taunts her opponent instead. Her alternate striker is Shizuru Kagura, her former teammate from KOF 97. Like Athena, Shizuru heals the player by performing her wind pose dance. Unfortunately, she's not as effective as Athena, as her dance takes too much time and she can be interrupted by the enemy. Yuri is next in the women fighters team, and she attacks by performing her super Yenriku. Like Mai, she needs to be close to the adversary, otherwise she'll just do her wind pose. But unlike Mai, the player can combo from her striker attack. Her alternate version is Samurai Shodown's famous character Nakururu. KOF 14 wasn't her first introduction to the series, canon aside, and like Athena and Chizuru, she heals the player. However, Nakururu is probably the best healer among the three, as she seems the fastest, especially compared to Chizuru. Moving on to Kasumi, who acts a lot like Geese in her striker form. She comes into the stage with a kick and taunts the opponent. If she is touched during her taunt, she throws them to the other side of the stage. None of her attacks causes damage though. Kasumi's other striker is Shanfei from Real Bout 2 and KOF 99. Shanfei's striker ability is pretty unique. She doesn't attack or heal. Instead, she mocks and insults the opponent, which causes their power meter to deplete. Despite how silly it looks, nobody can deny how devastating its effect is, and no one is immune against it, not even Zero with all his mighty power and cold attitude. Kasumi has a maniac striker labeled as unknown. But who is this game is trying to fool? It's Kasumi's father, Ryuhaku Todo, from the original Art of Fighting. His attack, although not the flashiest, is pretty effective. He enters the stage with a kick and follows it with his family's signature move, Kasaniate. Even if the enemy is knocked down by the kick, they'd still get hit with the projectile and the player can combo from there. Finally, Hinako uses her Tsukidashi special move to attack, but it will only work in close range. The move will maintain the opponent's stun for a few moments for the player to attack. Hinako's other striker is Billy Khan's younger sister, Lily. She doesn't look much of a fighter in this game and seems already out of breath when she enters the stage, but she will encourage the player, which has the effect of building their power meter. Basically, she is the opposite of Shanfei and equally useful. I know someone who'd be very happy to see her again. I kept Kula for last because she is a unique case as a striker. In fact, she'll never act as one. Her default striker form is not herself like the others, but her robotic friend Candy. She still utilizes a move that Kula would have used, a nice dance-like attack. For her alternate striker, Kula's overseer Foxy steps in. She attacks with her paralyzing dart. It's a damaging long-ranged projectile that can be followed with other moves from the player. Kula is another character to have in Maniac Striker, and for some obscure reason, hers is good old Rugal Bernstein. Why is that? What possible relationship could he have with Kula? I have no idea. But it's always a pleasure to see this jerk again. In a shocking twist, Rugal attacks using his famous slashing kick. It deals a decent amount of damage, and of course, you can finish the victim as they are falling with any of your moves. And that covers pretty much everything. No, it doesn't. You see, there are 10 more Maniac Strikers exclusive to the PS2 version, which you can only unlock by playing the party mode. These strikers are Chrysalid for K-Dash. He was a pain to beat in 1999 and even a greater pain to unlock in this game. Brian Butler from the American sports team as a striker for Terry Bogard. His friends Lucky Glober and Heavy D are of course present as well for Andy and Joe respectively. Geese's half-brother Krauser is a Maniac Striker for Mai, while the other 96 boss Mr. Big is available for Takuma. Mr. Big as a striker for Takuma makes sense lore-wise, but I don't see why Krauser is associated with Mai, apart from the fact that they're from Fatal Fury and they both use fire-based attacks. Hyder makes a comeback too as a striker for Whip. His attack is quite damaging, so fast and keeps the opponent stunned for a while, one of my favorites. The next characters are the big deal, Orochi Iori and Orochi Leona, but what I find interesting is that they're not available for their normal selves. They're actually the strikers for Benimaru and Ralph. That means you can use both versions of the same character in the same team. Ganging up on Kyo with the two Ioris and executing a double V slashers with the Leonas is incredibly satisfying. Lastly, the big baddie of the entire series, Orochi, also shows up as the Maniac Striker for Leona. As much as fun these exclusive strikers are, unfortunately they are not usable in the story mode. Now before we wrap up this video, you may be wondering, since Zero is playable in this version, what is his striker? Good question, to which the answer is, he doesn't have any. If you pick Zero in your team, he won't wait until he'll be the 4th member, he'll just invite himself in your playable team without permission. It's not really a big deal since the game has already way too many strikers, and this video is becoming a lot longer than it should. And that covers pretty much everyone. It was a long one, but I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Who is your favorite striker in KOF 2000? I'm curious to know your answer. Special thanks to my patrons for their generous support. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and why not consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching.